Hey everybody, Nathaniel here with Grow Geckos. We're going to go over power outages, specifically up here in New Hampshire. My main concern is winter and trying to keep the animals warm. We do lose power in the summer, but it's generally less duration, and it's not as big of an issue when the temperatures are already in the 70s and 80s. When the temperatures are in the 30s or below, there's a big concern here, and depending on the severity of the storm, it might be a couple of days, or if you're way out there, could be weeks without power sometimes. So depends on what your situation is a little bit, how many animals you have. The best option obviously is going to be some sort of generator. That's not possible for everybody. You're in an apartment. It's just not economically viable for you. So there are some other options you can do. It's a little bit easier if you only have one or two animals. Obviously, you can just throw them in a deli cup, bring them to a warmer section of the house, wrap them in a blanket. If you are going to wrap them in a blanket, you do need to keep some sort of airflow for them. They breathe a lot less than we do, but they still breathe. So you don't want to wrap them completely. If it's going to be a long duration, a great thing to have are some of these heat packs here. Typically, you're going to use them for shipping. Try and make sure you get the reptile ones. In an emergency, the hand and foot warmers will work, but keep in mind those get way hotter. So you may want to wrap those in some sort of blanket, keeping in mind, again, it's a chemical reaction, airflow. But if you're using these for shipping, these will work. There's a 30-hour and a 72-hour. That's how long they're going to go. So you may need a couple of them depending on how long you're without power and without heat. One thing to really keep in mind in advance of a storm, and more so for anybody with snakes, you really don't want to feed them. You may need to adjust your feeding schedule before a storm. The cold might not get them. Rotting food inside will, because they do utilize heat to digest. So you don't want to be feeding them the day before a storm, you lose power, and now there's a real concern, and there's not a whole lot you can do. I'm not going to recommend you start doing surgeries and trying to get animals to regurgitate. They're already going to be stressed with the temperature. So you may need to adjust your feeding schedule well in advance of any forecast storms. Better safe than sorry. That said, you might also want to have some sort of food item available, because if the power's out, either you might not be able to get to the pet store's not getting their shipments of crickets, mice, what have you. So having some sort of backup. Even if it means you've got to blend this up and feed it to them in a syringe or some sort of feeding kit here, that might be what you need to do for a long duration, but that's something you got to keep in mind there. Another option for heat, it is not great, but it is doable. If you have some sort of battery powered equipment, you can get a lot of times these sort of inverters here. This is one specifically for the larger Ryobi batteries, but they make them for every line of tool battery out there. You can run, there are plenty of calculators online to see how long your heat tape might work or something like that. I did a quick calculation. This is a 4 amp hour battery and this is a good size heat mat, so this is probably a little overkill. This is a 22 watt 11 by 17 heat mat, and you can get 5 hours out of that. So if you were to go a little bit smaller, you could get 10 hours. Not ideal, but not bad either, depending on what's going on. You can also wire up just a small little section of heat tape to be able to put underneath, rotate through animals, so they can get a little bit of heat, and do it that way. Or if you've only got a couple of them, maybe you can do enough to handle both of them at the same time. And then in the absolute worst case, deli cups inside a sweatshirt, but hopefully if you're at that point, there's probably a lot more going on that you got to worry about. But I would say the easiest and cheapest option is to have some of these heat packs. They do have longer duration ones as well. And if you can, a styrofoam box as well. So essentially like you're packing them up for an expo. Pack them up in deli cups, put them in the styrofoam box, put these either in there or outside to keep them warm. And you can do it like that. If you don't have a styrofoam box, check on your local Facebook town page. A lot of people, if you're getting those blue aprons and whatnot deliveries, a lot of those will come with that. Or some people with their medication, they end up just drowning in these styrofoam boxes and usually love to get rid of them. So having one or two of those kicking around isn't a bad idea either if you've got space to kind of keep it stored. So that's the quick and dirty lowdown on what to do if you're thinking you're going to lose power, specifically in the winter.